You're listening to New York's only home for Reefer Madness. Every week, we'll explore the unique perspective of cannabis in the global hub of commerce and culture. Hear the insights, stories, challenges, and successes of those blazing a path from Brooklyn to Buffalo and everywhere in between. I'm your host, Kalen Cassetter, coming to you from the Green Valley of Opportunity, Binghamton, New York. This is the Empire State of Cannabis. Today we have a very special guest, Dylan Barber. He runs a dairy farm in Freetown, New York, which is located in Cortland County. Last summer, he grew 2 acres of hemp. Welcome to the show, Dylan.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So you're showing up to work every day, socially distanced from everyone but the cows. But we're seeing all over the news and social media, milk is being dumped, and the market's in turmoil. So what's going on the ground?
Yeah, 2020 was looking to be a good year for the dairy industry. We were looking to see some prices that were going to be profitable for us, and it was really something we were looking forward to, considering the last 4 years have been, low prices and people have been struggling to make ends meet. So, like I say, going into the year, we had high hopes, and then COVID hit and things completely took a 365-degree turn. January 2020 of this year, we were getting paid around $20 a hundredweight for our milk, and you can make a living off of that. And then COVID hit, and the market completely took a crap. March we were getting $16 a hundredweight. In May coming up here, it's projected to be $12 a hundredweight. So, you're looking at 20 to 30 degree drop or percent drop in revenue, and when it costs us anywhere from $16 to $18 a hundredweight to produce that milk, that's huge. So
Yeah.
it's really got us in a bind, and the fact that it happened so quickly too. You really had to make some rash decisions as to how are we gonna pull through this. The fact that schools shut down, restaurants shut down, and decreased exports. Those are huge. That's a huge part of our market. And like you said, there was a lot going around about dumping milk, and there was no milk in the stores. So I don't think a lot of people understood what was going on. And part of that was the whole the processing end of it. We've got that milk's getting processed for the restaurants and the schools. Well, we kind of had to shift from that towards grocery stores. Not a lot of people want to go out and buy a 10-pound bag of shredded cheese that was made for a restaurant. We've got to make it for the consumer, I guess. So it's been something that we've never seen before, and I guess we'll see how it plays out. But that's kind of a nutshell as to what's going on.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, they don't understand how the markets work, right? So it's a commodity, and who sets the price that they're going to pay you?
Yeah, so basically it's a commodity. Set the Chicago Stock Exchange, and set by the federal government. And there's several different classes of milk and stuff like that, and that's all depending on class. There's a base price for all that, and the farmer, us farmers, so milk that I ship out tomorrow for May, I actually don't get paid until June. So there's essentially a month lapse there before I get paid for what I've produced. So there's a lot up in the air as to what you can expect to get, because it's all just projections per se. And obviously you've got the base price, but us farmers, we get paid for higher quality, we'll get a bonus and stuff like that. So there are ways to increase that base pay that we will get. but really we don't have much say into to what we get paid.
Gotcha. So, yeah, that's crazy. To try to run a business and you're kind of running it blind, right? You don't know what your revenues are going to be. So it doesn't matter whether you're sending your milk to Chobani or whether it's ending up in a Walmart. The price is the same.
For the most part, um, like I say, different co-ops will give different bonuses here and there. Quality premiums, stuff like that. So, um, and obviously, so you get paid on your pounds of butter fat, pounds of protein in the milk. So there's a lot of different components that come into that final price. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same across the board. Um, but yeah, it's like you said, you go into it with projections basically, and you don't really know until the next month what it's going to be. So
That's tough. That's really tough. So, last year, caught up with you and you said, basically there's four options for dairy farmers right now: get
yep.
bigger, go out of business, try to make things work, or diversify. So you chose the latter. Is that what really got you into growing hemp?
Yeah, I mean, so I know I have, like you just said, there was the four options, and I just would like to touch base back on that again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so so with the current situation with COVID and everything like that, a lot of the co-ops have put um, either a production cap on or have actually asked their producers to reduce production. So those four options, I would take away the whole getting bigger because um, that's really out of the picture right now because
Hmm.
the fact that they're asking producers to cut their production. So, yeah, so like I said, those other four options really, or three options really weren't, something that fit our bill, and we were looking to diversify in a way we could bring some more revenue into the business. And, you know, hemp seemed to fit the bill considering that, one of the big reasons was because all the acreage we have here on the farm was primarily for the farm and feeding the cows. So we didn't really have a lot of acres to give up for something like planting corn or wheat or something of that nature. So the fact that hemp was a low amount of acres we had to give up and the potential for some nice revenue, we figured, what the heck, let's give it a shot.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of farmers throughout the state and throughout the country looked at that and decided to do that too. And I think part of that has put a strain on the market, right? Do you see a parallel between? I mean, obviously the milk market is vastly more matured, but with these supply issues, oversupply, do you see some parallels there?
Oh, absolutely. And that's especially going into it this year and us deciding, do we want to get in and grow some more hemp this year? You know, we're already dealing with it on the dairy side with we're producing way too much for what's being consumed. And you're kind of seeing that now on the hemp side. It's not, totally deterring us from dabbling into it again, but it's certainly something of, you know, do we want to take that risk? And I think that there really needs to be some ways to, supply and demand basically, and put some caps on what we're producing. I know there's been talks of doing that in the dairy industry for years, and now they're finally starting to implement, some of those type of things. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's almost a question of the greater good and your individual right, right? It's hard to tell someone you can't grow something or you can't grow as much of it, right? Because, they're
Right.
like, okay, you know, screw the guy, screw the other guy. Let me just try to get in. It's a hot marketplace. They look and say, I think there's a disconnect too, and we talk about this on all of our episodes, the disconnect between the consumer, the customer, and the producer, right? And, what is the consumer looking for, right? Are they buying 1,200 milligrams of CBD every month? Okay, what does that mean in terms of how many plants and how many
Right.
pounds of dry material does it actually take to produce? I think there is almost like a perversion of thinking where saying, okay, I can get X amount per acre, so why don't I grow 100 acres? Well,
Right.
is there actually 100 acres of need, and is there going to be a market for that? When you get there, and it's a capital intensive crop, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
So that's the other calculation is, spending money. And so, what would you say then to a farmer who maybe grew last year, didn't get the price you wanted, maybe he's still sitting on hemp, or a farmer that is looking to get into hemp? What would be the advice that you would give him right now?
Um, Biggest thing is, and I know whoever you talk to, they're going to give you a different opinion, but from our experiences is make sure you got a market, or make sure you've at least got a lead of some kind of market.
Mm.
I don't say, people say, oh, have a contract, have a contract. Well, I've talked to people or read things that said people have backed out of contracts, or, violated them, or whatnot. So what good is a contract? But at least have an avenue for a market, and go into it with not a lot of investments per se. That was one of the reasons I think we were so successful, is we went into it, um, and we didn't invest a lot of money, because we
Mm.
wanted to kind of find that fine line of, okay, um, you know, this is what we can put into it, and get a lot out of it. So, um, you know, if you're looking at going in balls to the wall, and gonna grow 100 acres of this stuff, I think you're getting a little bit greedy. So I think the big points are, at least have somewhat of a market, or a lead on a market. Start small, be smart. Don't invest a lot of money at first. Do what you can with what you have, and just see what happens. I mean, we grew 2 acres,
Mm.
and I feel we were fairly successful with that. So, um, just give it a shot. I mean, if you're, you know, want to do it, go ahead and do it. I don't think we should be discouraging people from doing it, but I certainly we should be making them aware of of the risks, and the fact that you know the market is fairly flooded right now.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
And,
So
and what are you trying to get out of it, right? So, I think if you're just trying to get, you know, as much profit as possible, you're just going at it for a money perspective, you're going to be disappointed, right? But if you're
yeah.
going into it and saying, what's the experience that I can gain from this too, you know,
Hmm.
and yeah, what's my risks? How much money am I going to put into it? And I think you had a good point too, because last year, you and I went in on, growing a crop with you and 14 other farmers. And we went out to a real large company that said, we want all this hemp. We want it at this price. Here's a contract, everything. And lo and behold, they backed out in the middle of harvest, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so you're right. It's not just about the contract. What it's really about, and I think from what I took from that experience, is they didn't understand the customer. They didn't have their market set out. So it's beyond just going out making sure you've got something on paper, but what's the entire supply chain, right? So if an extractor is coming to you, a processor is coming to you and saying, I want your hemp, the next question should be, what are you doing with the hemp? You
Right.
know, what's your plan to get that hemp into the market? If it's just because your spreadsheet says that you can run, thousands of kilos a year and you can make X amount of money off it, well, that's a flawed model, right? And
Oh yeah.
so, but yeah, absolutely. I think, no one should be discouraged from growing hemp. I don't think you should put in what you can't afford to lose.
Right.
Right. I mean, and that's good advice for any business venture, right? But specifically in cannabis. So how do you think, let's go back. What was your experience with growing hemp, and, what were some of the unexpected challenges that you faced and some of the successes?
Well, I mean, like you say, you can read a lot of things on paper, but that doesn't always plan out when you're actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking at something to, obviously, with the dairy markets down, we were looking for something. Our number one thing at the time was, let's get some money, more money into the business. And going into it, that was kind of uh, that was our main goal. And as the season progressed, it became interesting, because it's a new thing. Not a lot of people are doing it. Um, a lot of people I talked to, thought it was cool that you're growing hemp. They wanted to come out and see the plot, stuff like that. So, um, you almost developed, made some new friendships with people, and it was, I learned something new. It was a crop that I'd never grown, never really knew a lot about. Um, so so just that aspect of it was interesting. We, like I'd said before, kind of went into it with, we didn't really want to put a lot of input costs and stuff like that. So we planted by hand, we harvested by hand, we did a lot of hand work, and you know it doesn't sound bad, but it can be intensive. We spent
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 days, 8 hours a day, hand planting 5,000 plants. And that's a lot of work, but the more I think about it, it was we're a family business, and we got all the family together, and we were out there. We spent time together. We planted some hemp, and it was really a good time to get everybody together and visit and socialize, and it was really a lot of fun. Um, and same thing on the harvest end. We spent 2 or 3 days harvesting, and it was the same deal. We were out there as a family. Um, so it was good. I
Yeah.
think, like I'd said, we didn't really run into a lot of surprises. A lot of it really went pretty smoothly, and a lot of people I talked to, said I was lucky. Maybe I was. I don't know. Maybe we did it right. I'm not really sure, but um, I mean, I guess I really don't have a lot of negative things to say about it. We didn't run into pest problems. We didn't. The weather was good. We ended up harvesting it all. So overall, I'd say it was a success for us. So
Yeah. So how important do you think it is, the field selection and the preparation of that field?
I think that's real crucial. I mean, we picked some of the best ground on the farm, and you know prepped it right, plowed it right, planted it right. Um, the spacings 4 by 4, and I saw a difference. We didn't use any commercial fertilizer. We actually just went through, and before we plowed and rototilled, we spread cow manure on it, and it was neat to see. Some parts of the field we got a little heavy on the nitrogen, the cow manure, and some parts wasn't quite as heavy, and you could actually see those plants did better than the other ones.
Huh.
Um, so, like I say, good, high fertile soil, soil that drains well. Um, we didn't have to we didn't even irrigate or anything. It was just, it seemed like that perfect, before we did it, we were just like, this is one of the best fields. Let's give it try in hemp. And as more people came out and saw the plot, they're like, this is really a good spot. It gets pretty much 24-hour sunlight, or not 24-hour, pretty much sunlight all day, and it just seemed to everything just seemed to work good. So
Yeah, to click into place. And I guess it's all about your expectations, right? So you're looking at, let's see what it can do. But if you went into the season thinking, this is going to make me a millionaire and I'm going to take out a second mortgage on my property to do so, you might be a little disappointed at the end of the year, right? So I think
yeah,
that's key too, is managing expectation. Also opportunity costs, right? There's a certain point where, that amount of labor you have to put in the hemp is going to take you away from your core business, which is
right,
dairy. And
right.
that's where you start to get into some trouble too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we wanted to find that fine line, was between, yeah, we could have grew more and had to hire out people, or we could have put more fertilizer down and had more fertilizer costs, but would we have really saw that at the end, with profit? And you know we didn't really, our expectation was, whether we made $10 or $10,000, you know, it was still going to be profitable, and that was our big thing, was making a profit. So, um, like you said, if you're going into this thinking you're going to be a billionaire, I think you're fooling yourself from the start.
Yeah, I think so. And that doesn't matter whether you're trying to start the next big CBD brand, you're going to have the quote unquote biggest processing facility in the Northeast. I tell people that if I had $1 for every time someone told me they were going to have the biggest processor in New York, I would have made
Hmm.
more money than off hemp.
I believe it. I
You
believe it.
know, talk is
Yep.
cheap in this industry, and it's abundant. So
Yep.
it's refreshing to talk to someone who can provide some reality, and I think the listeners are gonna really see a lot of value in that. So, how do you see that experience with hemp relating to adult use cannabis?
Oh, I think that that's just as, just as big of an opportunity, but like we've been talking, we still need to go in it with the same type of expectations. Um, I think that in the long run, I think that the market for adult use cannabis is sky's the limit. I think there's potential for that. I mean, look at the illegal markets right now. I mean, they're booming,
Hmm.
and you know, it's something we could be capitalizing on. And I think that we're essentially missing out. I don't foresee it ever declining per se. If anything, I think it's just gonna increase. I think there's still a lot of people out there that think, oh, it's illegal. We can't consume it. We can't do it. And you know, a lot of people gonna see that it's legal to use. I see it only increasing. So
Yeah, and it's that opportunity, and we talk about the opportunity all the time, whether it's for a rural community or an urban community, and the opportunity needs to be given, and it needs to be given by the lawmakers, right? And
absolutely.
because you can't go out and yeah, you could grow illegal cannabis and worry about the DEA coming to your field, but you can't participate in that market. When you say yeah, the illicit market is booming, we're talking about possibly $4 billion of illicit cannabis sales in New York every year that is not being taxed, right? And
Right.
is not
Yep.
going to, you know, businesses such as yourself, which could benefit. So then if adult use passed tomorrow, you could see yourself going for a license.
Oh, absolutely. I see no reason why not to. I mean, we've dabbled in the hemp market last year. We've kind of got our feet wet as to how the plant, grows and whatnot. And you know, we're still looking for, some additional revenue sources for our business. And you know, I don't see why we wouldn't at least give it a shot. Like I say, what do nothing ventured, nothing gained. So,
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting market dynamic about adult use cannabis is it needs to stay in state, right? So you reduce competition from whether it's overseas or out of state, at least for the time being, and probably for the next 5, 10 years, where it's, if you have a demand in New York City, it has to come from New York, right? So you have that artificial barrier to entry where you're prioritizing New York producers, which is a beautiful thing. You can't do that with hemp because of the Constitution, right? You can't do
right.
that with milk because of the Constitution. And so it provides a real unique opportunity in terms of market dynamics there. And, off the bat, I mean, we know the demand's going to be there, but then it's a question of, okay, year 3, 4, 5, now quality is going to be a distinction, quality and your cost, right? So if you're focused on keeping your costs low from the beginning, even though you're literally printing money, you know that the prices are going to come down because inevitably they always do, right?
Right.
And so you can then focus on quality. Now, how does that? Because I think that has a lot of parallels to what you do. You're a smaller operation comparatively for dairy, right? But you focus on quality, you focus on genetics, right? So walk us through how you see some parallels between that.
Well, I mean, absolutely. Big thing for me is I think that, and even after this whole COVID situation, people are going to want to know where their products are coming from,
Hmm.
like you'd said. Whether it's milk, marijuana, whatever, meat. People are. I think that that's going to be the next hot thing is buying local, knowing where whatever you're buying is coming from, and you know I think that that potential for a smaller business is a lot easier to to capitalize on. We've talked even on the dairy side is opening up our own processing plant and processing and bottling our own milk and hitting that market.
Hmm.
Um, same thing with meat. There's a lot of farm to table small type of meat operations, beef, pork, you name it. Same thing with, marijuana per se. Making sure that that's, whether you buy it from the small farmer down the road, or actually on the product it's labeled, grown New York, whatever you want to say. I think that the whole knowing where something's coming from in general is going to be huge. So
Yeah, no, I think so too. And that was some of the work that we did with New York Cannabis Growers and Processors Association last year was with Seminole and Don Lepardo. Every hemp extract product in New York State now has to show where it's grown and has to show the test results, right? And so we're hoping, yeah, you can't artificially stop, a product from Colorado or California coming in to the state and being sold in stores across the state. But what you can do is you can say you need to adhere to the same standards, and your junk products, yeah, they can't be allowed in because that's a public health concern. So, I think we're hoping there. And I think, you see with Department of Ag and Markets in New York State, they're increasingly going towards, educating farmers on marketing, and connecting consumers, educating consumers too, where their food comes from. Don't buy into the hype of these marketing campaigns just because it says it's more sustainable or it's better for you. That doesn't really mean jack, right? Because you could
right,
still have a large, producer from some other country even, producing the same quality product, right?
right, yeah. And I mean, I think consumers would be willing to even pay a little more for a higher quality
Hmm.
product. And that, so like we talked, obviously, the farther out, you know you get, the prices tend to drop. So if we can set a standard for, you know quality cannabis, and if we can meet that standard or even exceed it, maybe we can charge a little more. And I think people would pay a little more because they know where it's coming from, they know it's good quality, and they know they're going to be happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you wouldn't know it by listening to the interview here because you're so knowledgeable, Dylan. But you're young. You're my age, right?
Yep.
So how does being a young farmer, a young business owner, how does that shape your perspective on the future of farming and the future of agribusiness?
Well, I think, biggest thing is I'm young. I'm aggressive per se. I'm willing to listen to new ideas and stuff like that. Some of the older generation, they kind of get stuck in their ways. It's okay, we've done it this way for 40 years. Why are we going to change? Even if they're losing money that way, sometimes it's hard to get change. So, being young, being, active, Farm Bureau, and this kind of stuff where, I'm active in that aspect. So I'm out there listening to people, gathering new ideas. I think that sets me up for success, I hope. But I think that's the biggest thing is you've got to be, whether you're young like me or whatever. I think the biggest thing is you've got to be willing to change. You've got to be willing to listen to ideas, and you've got to be willing to give things a try because, um, especially in dairy, I mean, with the way the changing markets are, if you don't change or adapt, I mean, you're gonna be lost. So, I think that's the biggest things.
Yeah, and beyond even a market perspective, we're living in a time where our generation is, yeah, like you said, becoming conscious of where their food comes from, but also conscious in the looming threat of climate change, right? And so sustainability has been pushed to the front, and frustratingly, you see all over Facebook that dairy and farming in general is bad for the planet, right?
Yeah.
So I look at you spend a considerable amount of time and resources on your infrastructure to actually make your farm more sustainable. And I see it all the time, especially with dairy farmers. So, do you kind of see yourself as, as a small farm, as someone who, is putting the time and effort into your infrastructure? You see yourself as kind of a model for, a sustainable farm, and what we can say to our generation to say, listen, farming can be sustainable in the right model.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, just this past year, I worked with local soil and water and the NRCS, and we did some water quality improvement projects around the farm. I put in put in a covered barnyard, put in a small manure storage, you know, put in some diversion ditches, some drainage and stuff like that, just to be more, you know, eco-friendly. And you know, like I say, that was a big project, and for a small business like me, I guess you would say, to make that kind of investment, you know, it's big for me, but you know, yeah, absolutely. I think that farming in general, I mean, if you look at any size operation with the you know the soil testing and the, you know, certain times of the year where you spread manure, and certain ways you spread manure, or manure storages, or anything that farmers do just to better improve the soil and the water and the land. I mean, it's almost like it's our, you know, number one. You know, if we didn't do it, we wouldn't be in business. It doesn't. It benefits us as a business just as much as it benefits the environment. So they kind of run hand in hand.
Yeah, and I think it's important for policymakers to understand that you put the resources, whether it's grants or loans or incentives, tax incentives, into producers' hands, they will move towards being more sustainable because it works for their business. It works for the fact that, unlike most other business, your business is tied to the land, and you want to pass that, productive, beautiful land on to future generations. So there's every incentive for you to become more sustainable. Is there all that incentive for a pork producer that's owned by a Chinese company? Not necessarily, right? Is there that much incentive for a manufacturing facility that can up and move somewhere else as soon as something like what we've seen in Binghamton, where IBM created a massive plume underneath Endicott, right? They just up and left, right? But as a
Right.
farmer, you can't really do that. You don't have that option.
Yeah, I mean, this is you know, this farm has been in my family for, you know, 3, 4 generations. So my parents were big into the environment, and keeping water clean and all that kind of stuff. And you know, their efforts have allowed me to come back and you know, farm that same ground and be successful. So um, you know, my only hopes is that I'm able to continue to do that, and if, you know, I have a family someday, that they're able to carry that on as well. So
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Dylan. This was an excellent conversation. And, if you want to keep hearing these conversations, subscribe, keep coming back to us on our Facebook and YouTube page. Dylan, anything else you want to include?
um, you know, I'll take you know, the opportunity to advocate for the dairy side a little bit. You know, just tell people to keep buying dairy products, keep supporting your local farmers, whether it be dairy, beef, pork, whatever. Local businesses, that's, you know, the backbone of this nation. And just thank you, Kalen, for the time, and all you do for the cannabis industry, and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Dylan.